So our topic today was on education, and many of the barriers to education have already been highlighted by the other groups. So I'll be precise and name the three most important ones that we highlighted. The first one was creating awareness. As we started to talk about it, we realized there are a number of colleges, institutions, organizations, formal and informal, that do provide education. However, there is a lack of awareness. I didn't know about some of the organizations here on our table, for example. So we felt creating awareness was primary reason for difficulties in Slough. Costs was the second one. Given that education should be available for free, it isn't really. The costs can be quite prohibitive, and that stops people from attending classes or developing themselves. And then the third point was fear of learning. And this is when people are excluded, for example, to start with, and that starts quite early, I think. When they're in schools and they're excluded, they're never going to be able to go back into learning unless there's more support available. So that was the third point we made. Apart from that, others have already raised, difficulties such as transport, language, exclusions. They all form part of barriers for education. With regards to what needs to be done, we felt, again, 3 points. We need to provide a platform to network, so we all don't necessarily know what's available, and we need more platforms like today for all of us to meet and talk to each other. There are many groups around that are doing things in isolation, and it would work much, much better if we could all talk to each other, and I think your group raised that as well. We also felt that we need to support the enablers. There are many enablers who would like to do a lot more than they are currently doing, but there just isn't enough support for them. And then the last one was fund providers, whether it's government, whether it's local authorities. We feel that there's not enough funding going into the education sector per se. With regards to what's available, there are a number of colleges we listed, East Berkshire College, libraries, WUF, Educational Association. There are a number of colleges. So we do know that there are a number of organizations willing to provide that service in Slough. In terms of what can we do, networking with each other, we feel that this has been quite a successful thing. Thank you very much, Slough Borough Council, for putting this on today and allowing us to meet with each other. It really is an invaluable opportunity to meet with so many people who are passionate about it. We're all doing it in our own time often. So it's quite nice to meet with other people with whom we can share and network. There should be certainly more opportunities like this for us to do that. Sharing resources and space. Again, this was highlighted by another group. There are pockets of organizations doing similar sort of thing, but I, personally speaking, couldn't find how to get in touch with them. So it would make sense for us to share those limited resources and the spaces we have. Regarding the space, we did touch quite a lot on the high street and the value of high street, given that the shopping and retail shops are going out of business, whereas community groups are struggling to find spaces. So it would be far more useful if this space can be used as gathering spaces for communities. And then the last point we got was for supporting the educators. We feel that educators are all there because they're passionate about educating people. But their goodwill is being tested hugely by very little resources going into it. And therefore we need to find a way to support those educators who want to do the right thing for future generations. So those were our musings and thoughts.
area that we looked at was on disability, that included physical disability and also autism and learning disabilities. And we said, first of all, the question was, how might disability lead to social isolation? We said that access can be problematic. Physical access might be an issue. People might feel that it's not the clubs and activities that are available, and obviously there's a lot around Slough, that it's not for them. They may not be able to access the services if no one can go with them, so that might be an issue if they've got, well, any disability that's going to impede that. And they also said that, we also said that the communication needs to be simpler. Anything that any information that we have about clubs or services needs to be simpler, more straightforward, and specifically that's important for people with learning disabilities, autism or visual impairments, because that actually doesn't enable them to access that information in a simple, straightforward way. We also said that people avoid talking to you, talking to people with disabilities. They won't ask, or they're too afraid to ask about your disability. That includes maybe your neighbour or even sort of people that are running services, and asking how it affects you, not asking the right question. And sometimes we felt that people were being a bit too PC, and actually what people wanted was not to be afraid to ask what they can do to help and what are the issues. The second one is, again, there's a plethora of organisations. Oh, sorry, I'm going to turn around. There's a plethora of organisations around Slough. Some of them were national ones, but a lot of them were smaller ones. Lots and lots of them. So some of them would be things like Health Watch, MenCap, Deaf Positive, Get Berkshire Active, the Recovery College. Lots and lots on here, which we felt that people could access. So that was really nice to see. For somebody who's not from Slough, to actually see there's lots and lots of activities and services in Slough. On what else needs to be done, we again touched on finance and budgets, and we felt that it's very difficult to pool budgets. We felt that actually there was a need to do that because we've all got a limited amount of money, but found often that budgets are too specific to projects or groups, too restrictive, and people get very protective about that. And I think that's, a number of you have talked about that, so I think that's something that maybe you could look at. We also talked about developing some consortium or partnership, working really true partnership to address the needs. And that really came about because we were aware that with a number of services that people's problems or disabilities are not always specific to one issue. So you could have somebody with autism who's also got a physical disability, maybe somebody's got a learning disability who may also be visually impaired, and they don't just need services in silo, they need to actually look at it from a personal perspective. We also thought that mobility, so transport was a problem. We did talk about the transport that was available in Slough, opportunities, but quite often they have to be booked in advance, and we thought that was quite interesting if we're trying to address social isolation, that somebody might, as we might get one morning think, actually we feel like going out today, but actually we can do that. If you haven't got the transport and it's not booked in advance, then actually that impedes your opportunity to do that. Individual approaches, we said that quite often we need to give people the opportunity to communicate in their own way, and that's very specific, obviously, for our group. We need to actively listen, and we also need to be mindful of our language and our tone when we're speaking to people. Some concrete things we said we could do is visit or check on people who are not well. So, if we know people who are not well, whether it's our work colleagues or people that are neighbours, we can do that. We also said that remember that people are not their condition. That was really, really important. I think over here on mental health, we talked about that in terms of labelling, and we felt actually that was not always helpful. Smiling, we did say that smiling and greet people is really helpful. And also we talked about embracing each other, and we felt that although quite often people don't necessarily want to be physically touched, for some older people or people who don't have that opportunity to have that physical contact, and we thought that was really important as well. So.